Greetings my friends, it's Top Hat Runner here, and today I'm going to be talking about a product I've been developing for quite some time.
Now it's finally finished and has been very thoroughly tested by myself and many others.
And that is the VSR and AEG barrel compatible hop-up chamber for the KJW KC-02.
This upgrade part does not require an HPA setup to work. It'll work well with green gas, CO2, HPA, whatever setup you want.
This is possibly going to be a rather lengthy video, so there will be a table of contents in the video description. Before anyone comments on my setup, yes, I know I need a longer suppressor and to switch to a straight airline. But anyway, now about this product, what is it? It is a conversion chamber. It allows you to use VSR buckings with VSR barrels or VSR buckings with AEG barrels. Notice how neither of those are AEG buckings, both are VSR buckings. But anyway, either of those combinations in your KJW KC-02. There is a separate chamber for VSR barrels and VSR buckings, and a different chamber for AEG barrels and VSR buckings. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, that's because the the KC-02 has proprietary barrel and bucking setups, so you are extremely limited in what barrels and buckings you can use. If you want to upgrade your barrel, as far as I know, you are completely limited to only 6.01 barrels, which I actually do not recommend for long-range shooting and gas guns. I get extremely good performance out of the Orga 500mm AEG barrel I've got in my KC-02 right now with both HPA setup and standard green gas. It's a lot better than the 6.01 tight bore PDI I was running. I just seem to get a lot less flowers at range with the Orga or other wider barrels. So if you want to use some sort of specialty barrel like the Orga, you can do that. If you want to, get a certain length, you can do that. You just have so many more options. Another reason is VSR buckings. There are a lot of very good VSR buckings you can use.
I've even been able to get R-Hop to work with AEG barrels, though I could never get R-Hop to work with KC-02 or VSR barrels. I'll talk about that more in the section about which buckings and barrels to use.
I have tested out all of the KC-02 buckings available that I know of, the RA Tech, the Falcon, and the FE, all of which were subpar and I didn't really care for. So with VSR buckings, you have a lot more options like, Maple Leaf, Modify, Firefly, all those buckings a lot of people seem to really like. Okay, now onto the installation. The chamber is going to come in a little plastic bag like so. In the bag, there should be 5 parts. You should get your chamber. It's not going to have any marks on it like mine does because mine's been thoroughly tested. It's going to have the VSR barrel clip, and it is going to come with 3 nubs of varying height. I will explain that later. Okay. As you might notice when you first open up the package, when freshly printed, this material is a little powdery. It's got a bit of powder on the side. The material, once you get that powder off of it, it does not continue to powder further. It's just a part of the 3D printing process that leaves it with the thin coat of powder on it. So what you can do to get some of that initial powder off is just rinse it off in your sink, or you can use a garden hose with a spray attachment if you want a bit more pressure. Or you can take a bit of sandpaper and rub it down with that to get some of the powder out of it. But once the initial powder is gone, none of the powder is going to be getting down your barrel. But for the first couple hundred shots, you should probably clean your barrel every 100 shots or so. But after that initial bit, there's no additional powder. So you can go ahead and rinse it off. So yes, this material is safe to get wet. Can of dust or gas might also help. To install this into your gun, all you're going to need is some Allen keys. And probably a wrench or a pair of pliers. So first thing, to disassemble your gun, what you're going to need to do is take out the Allen key screw here, and the other one there. Next up, you're going to want to find your fire selector here and adjust it so that it is kind of halfway between safe and halfway between fire. And once you do that, the receiver should slide right out of the stock Now the pins here, here, and here on yours are going to want to just slide right out, so be careful not to lose those. Up next, you're going to want to remove the Allen keys here and here, and here and here. And the other screws you're going to want to remove are the two in front of your hop-up dial on the top rail. You don't have to remove any of the other screws on the top rail. And once you unscrew those, when you pull up, as you see, there's a little torus shape on the top rail that fits into the other part of the rail. So if you pull up on this, it should slide right out. Now you can go ahead and set your receiver down over here. And then you can slide your hop-up chamber and inner barrel out of your outer barrel. And this is your hop-up chamber. Now what you're going to want to do is just remove this barrel bolt. Now the first time you unscrew this, it might require a pair of pliers or a wrench or something. You might have to really twist it hard to get it off. Be sure that you're unscrewing it, not tightening it. But after the first time, it should be able to screw in and out just easily by hand. And once you slide off this barrel bolt, you don't need the stock inner barrel, chamber, hop-up, none of that. Next up, you're going to want to take your VSR chamber and your VSR barrel. I don't actually have a VSR barrel, but the Tokyo Marui gas blowback pistol barrels are cut the same, and I have heard from many VSR users that this chamber works great with VSR barrels, so I know it works fine. And you're going to want to take your VSR bucking, just put it on top of your, put it on your barrel. Just the normal installation. You want to make sure it's on properly. After the bucking is on your barrel, you're going to want to take your barrel clip here, and you'll notice there are two shelves on the inside of the clip that clip onto the cutouts of your barrel. Now on VSR barrels, this little cutout here is up against the bucking. So on a VSR barrel, you're going to want to make sure the two shelves are on the side towards the bucking, and it'll clip on like so, where it's just touching the bucking. If you have it clipped on the wrong way, it'll try and like push on the bucking, and that's not going to work. So just clip it on so that the two shelves are on the side the bucking is on, and it'll clip right in place. Now it doesn't matter if it's clipped on with the gap on the bottom of the barrel or the top of the barrel, that does not make a difference. You can also put some Teflon tape, around the, or between your barrel and your bucking if you want a better air seal. Now up next, you're going to want obviously the top of your barrel, which is where the bucking, the hop-up nub is. Want that facing up, and you'll want to slide that into your chamber. Now since Shapeways tolerances aren't that great, sometimes the chamber might be really tight around the bucking, or it might be really loose around the bucking. Either way it should work. If it's really tight, you might have to tap it in. If it's loose, it'll just slide right in. Otherwise, like I said, I have the chamber adjusted so that it should work on either end of the too tight or too loose spectrum of Shapeways' tolerances. And if you're using the KC-02 pack, that's just going to come with a different barrel clip and some additional nubs, how you're going to want to install that is just take your bucking put it on your KC-02 barrel here. You're going to notice that the bucking stops just short of clipping into the ring on your KC-02. So what you're going to do is take this KC-02 barrel clip, which just has a ring shelf all around it, and clip it on so that the shelf is on the side of the bucking, like so. So it doesn't matter where it's rotated to. And then just go ahead and slide that into your chamber, and you'll install the barrel clip the same way as with the VSR barrel, which I'll show you in just a moment. Now if you got the AEG barrel compatible chamber, it's going to install more or less the same way as the VSR chamber. The AEG chamber is a little longer. It comes with the AEG barrel clip, a ring, and the 3 nubs. You're going to want to take your AEG barrel you want to install. In my case, I've got a 500mm long Orga barrel that I've R-hopped. This G-hop does not work in the KC-02's hop-up setup. Take your bucking, your VSR bucking. You're still going to use VSR buckings with the AEG barrel chamber. AEG barrels will not work with this gun. Even though they don't clip into the barrel like they do with the VSR, they still get a great air seal, especially if you wrap a bit of Teflon tape around it. Now up next, after you put on the VSR bucking, you want to slide the ring over the end of your barrel, and then you're going to want to take the AEG clip, and with the shelves that clip into the barrel facing away from the ring, you're going to want to clip this onto your barrel so that the buckings touching the ring, just touching the clip. They should all just be touching, none of them should be like pushing on the other. And after you have that set up, it'll just slide right into your chamber. Now my AEG chamber here was printed a little tight, so I'm just gonna have to pat it down with my hand, just fine. And now you're going to screw down the barrel bolt in the same way that you screw it down in the VSR chamber, which I'm about to show you in just a minute, except when screwing it down, you're going to want to look in this front cutout for the barrel bolt, which I will explain while showing you how to install the VSR. And up next, you're going to want to slide in your barrel bolt here. Now there are no threads on the inside of the chamber. The reason for that is Shapeways cannot 3D print out threads fine enough for this barrel bolt, but that's not a problem. You're going to be threading it yourself, which some people think it's an issue or a concern, but it's really not. As far as durability goes, I have screwed and unscrewed the barrel bolt into this chamber well over 30 times, so for any user it's definitely going to be durable enough as far as the threads are. Some people are concerned about cross-threading, but if I try as hard as I can to cross-thread it, I still can't get it to cross-thread, so as long as you're at least attempting to screw it on straight, you're not going to have any issues. And the reason for that is the inner barrel itself keeps the bolt straight, and the chamber, you can set the barrel bolt in a little bit before you actually start screwing down. So take the barrel bolt and push it into the chamber, and then just screw it down. Now the first time you screw it down, it might be a little difficult. You might have to get out a wrench or a pair of pliers or something, but after that, it's not that bad. Now you're going to want to look in the little gap here, and you notice that at the front of the gap, if you push down on the barrel clip, what you're looking at here, is going to be flush with the front of the gap, and as you screw in the barrel bolt, you'll start seeing that. I don't know if you can really see the barrel bolt on camera, but when you're looking at it in person, you're going to see the barrel bolt in there. Now, you might want to loosen it so it's just short of being fully tightened. You're going to want to take one of the nubs, doesn't matter which height, drop it in the top like so. Now look down your barrel and just push down on the nub, twist your barrel, make sure it's properly aligned in the center. Once it's aligned in the center, just tighten down the barrel bolt. Now it shouldn't rotate because the friction between the barrel clip and the chamber should be a lot greater than the friction between the barrel bolt and the barrel clip, so it shouldn't rotate. But just check it one more time when it's fully tightened down. which checking the rotation of your barrel is definitely something you should be doing in every hop-up you ever install in an airsoft gun. Some people are concerned what prevents the barrel from rotating. Well, there's nothing in the operation of the gun to encourage it to rotate, and there's also a considerable amount of friction between the edges of the chamber and the bucking. There's also the fin on the side of the bucking to prevent it from rotating, and the barrel clip is going to be clipped onto your barrel, and it's going to be held in place by the barrel bolt. It's going to be pushing the barrel clip against the chamber, and the friction between those two should be good enough to prevent it from rotating. So you really don't have to worry about rotating. I've never had that issue for thousands of rounds I've shot through my gun with this chamber. You want to screw the barrel nut down until it's pressed up against the barrel clip. You don't need to screw it down very tight, just something a little firm, but you don't need to grab your pliers or wrench and just torque it as hard as you can to screw it down, or you might break something, but you can break the metal chamber doing that. In fact, I almost did the first time I tried to disassemble my gun. Now, of course, you're going to want a much longer inner barrel, but I'm just using this one for demonstration purposes. Now, in the stock gun, you're going to notice there's a barrel spacer and a little extension in here. I've lost mine, so I can't demonstrate, but if you're installing a barrel longer than the stock barrel into your gun, which you definitely should be, to get the spacer out, what you're going to need to do is remove this top rail section. So unscrew these two screws here. Once you remove the top rail section, the spacer and barrel extension should just slide right out. If they don't, you can take your stock inner barrel and use it to push them out. And you can put the rail back on if you so desire. Up next, you're going to want to take the chamber and your barrel. Maybe take one of my barrel spacers I have available. There'll be a link in the video description where you can pick one of those up off my Shapeways. And this chamber should just slide right in. Now, like I said, due to Shapeways tolerances, sometimes it might be a little tight, might be a little loose. You might have to pat it in with your hand, but either way, it should fit right in. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is take your Allen key and just kind of line it up with the screws across the top and make sure it's properly centered on this hole here. You don't really have to do that because installing the gun should center it as you go, but it's just something I like to check. Okay, now on to some more information on the nubs here. As you can see here, these three nubs are varying heights. Now, the reason for this being is there's a lot more than just version 1 and version 2 of the KC-02, and every version I've come across in testing seems to have a different length hop-up adjustment rod. So you're going to have to, unfortunately, try by trial and error. That's the only way to know which nub you'll need. I recommend starting out with the middle height, and if on the highest setting it's not providing enough hop, then you're going to need to switch to the taller nub, and if on the lowest setting it's not providing, or it's providing too much hop still, then switch to the lower one. So like I said, unfortunately you're going to need to do trial by error. Just depends on which version of your KC-02 is, but there should be a nub that works with your gun regardless of what version you have. Even if you have the ASG version that doesn't even work with the stock hop-up setting, or stock hop-up chamber still doesn't even apply enough hop. But you're going to want to take whichever nub. I know for a fact that mine works with the shorter nub, so you go ahead and take your nub and you just drop it in the chamber like so. Now, while installing this, note that if you turn your chamber upside down, the nub will probably fall out. If for some reason the nub is sticking or it's too big or something, due to Shapeways' tolerances, this shouldn't be an issue because, like I said, I've tuned this chamber to compensate for Shapeways tolerances, but just in case, all you have to do is just take some sandpaper and rub down the sides of the nub. So go ahead and drop that in there. Now on the receiver, you're going to have to unscrew your hop-up dial here. Just keep unscrewing it and eventually it'll pop right out. Take your chamber, your outer barrel and whatnot, and just slide it on. Now you're going to want to screw in the 2 top screws into the top rail here. Screw this clamp thing back onto your receiver here. Then once you have all that tightened down, you can go ahead and screw your hop-up dial back in. Then make sure your fire selector is still in the middle position. And you can slide your receiver right back into your stock. If you're having trouble getting it in, make sure those pins I suggested earlier are probably going to try and escape. Make sure they're centered. Same with the pins here in the trigger grouping. Once you have all those pins in the middle, they'll slide right back in. You can go ahead and screw those Allen key screws back in. And your KC-02 is ready to rock. One thing that's very important to note about this chamber is the VSR buckings opening is a little smaller than the KC-02's feed lip. So when you first cock your gun with the magazine, you do not want to gently release it forward like this. This is not good. The first shot, if you are going to let it forward, you either need to push the bolt the rest of the way forward, or you just need to let it go and cycle completely. Now the reason for this being is, like I said, the air nozzle is a little larger than the VSR buckings opening. The VSR chamber is tuned so that there is an opening that the VSR bucking can expand around the air nozzle. However, it's going to take a little bit of force for the air nozzle of the KC-02 to push into the VSR bucking. Now, the regular cycling of the gun, the recoil, the gun pushing the bolt back is more than enough force to push the air nozzle into the chamber, or the hop-up bucking, so during normal operation it's perfectly fine. However, when you cock the first shot, you just don't want to gently let it go forward. You either need to push it the rest of the way, or just let it go. Now, before you go asking me how exactly this chamber affects performance, keep in mind that it is just a conversion chamber. What kind of performance you get out of this is going to depend entirely on what barrel and bucking you use. The chamber itself doesn't really affect performance. It allows you to use parts that will affect your performance. So like I said, chamber is a conversion chamber. So then, what barrels and bucking should you use? Well, you have a lot of options. Now, if you're working with AEG barrels, keep in mind that they always have this little, I'm just going to call it bridge, over the back of the hop-up cutout. Some VSR barrels do not, some do, and PDI VSR barrels are essentially AEG barrels 90% of the time. Even though PDI likes to pretend they're VSR barrels, they are in fact not. They are AEG barrels. If you want to, this is actually a modified PDI barrel that I modified to work with the KC-02. You could always modify off this bridge if you want to. I'll explain why you might want to in a minute. There'll be a link in the video description to a video that I made, a demonstration of how to do that. So with your AEG barrels, tightness, tight bore, for CQB or close ranges, I recommend 6.01s. For longer range shootings, I recommend wider bores. Since this is a gas blowback and it puts out a large volume of air, you can just go straight to the Orga. Like I said, I get great results with the Orga regardless of what gas setup I run. However, if you're running the normal stock valve, not one of my high flow valves, you might want to go with a shorter than 500, but it'll probably still work fine. Now, as for buckings, for VSR buckings, unfortunately I do not have the time nor means to test out all the various buckings and see which one's the best, but I can give you some generalizations. the Airsoft Surgeon or A+ buckings that have an extended nub and no fin on the side. I do not recommend those because they're extremely hard to get straight in your gun. They have good performance, but they're very difficult to not have twisted off to the side because there's no fin on the side. I'm not sure why they thought that was a good idea, but hey, I'm not them. So there are two main types of buckings as well. There are normal length hop-up contact points like your Firefly, or pretty sure Modify is normal as well. Also KM head. You might want to double check me on these, but I know Firefly is the normal length. There's also the Maple Leaf. As for buckings, I wouldn't recommend anything harder than 70 degrees. 70 degrees is a pretty good hardness. For the extended buckings like the Maple Leaf, you're going to need a barrel like a VSR barrel or a modified AEG barrel without the bridge on the back here. You're going to need to cut that off, otherwise if you try and install it, it's just not going to work. So the thing about extended hop-up buckings though is they tend to magnify your gun's performance, so that cannot be a good thing in gas blowbacks, because if the if your gas output is relatively inconsistent as far as FPS goes, which with green gas is pretty much guaranteed to be the case unless you really modify your gun for high consistency or you run an HPA setup, I would not recommend an extended contact point bucking like the Maple Leaf, because it's just going to magnify the inconsistencies of your velocity, which means the hop up is not going to be consistent. I would recommend a regular length like the Firefly or something. Unfortunately, I got shipped the wrong Firefly. It's way too soft. It's the softest version, so I have not been able to test Firefly's performance, sadly. But if you just do research on VSR buckings, you should be able to see whichever one's the best, because the performance should carry over into the KC-02 more or less the same way. So if you're running HPA or have your gun tuned for high consistency, I would recommend an extended contact point bucking like the Maple Leaf. If you're running it stock or relatively close to stock, I would recommend a regular contact point bucking. If you get an AEG barrel, you can always R-hop it. G-hop modification, some of my subscribers will be familiar with that I've talked about in the past, does not work in this gun because it just doesn't push the contact point far enough into the barrel. R-hop I've had good results with AEG barrels and the HPA and actually regular gas magazines. However, on barrels without the bridge on the back, I get terrible results with R-hop, so I would not recommend R-hop on anything but an AEG barrel or a VSR barrel with the bridge on the back. And other than those compatibility issues that I've talked about, like I said, I don't have the time or means to test all of the VSR buckings, so do your own research and see which one you like. And another advantage besides the much larger variety of upgrade parts to choose from for using a VSR bucking is how well VSR buckings has seal with the KC-02. You notice the KC-02's air nozzle here fits very well into the VSR bucking. You notice the bucking kind of flares out a bit as its opening is a little smaller than the KC-02's nozzle, but they fit together perfectly, and I have added a little extra space in the hop-up chamber to allow the bucking to expand outward so that the bucking and the air nozzle can get a really solid seal. Now the material the chamber is made out of is nylon that's 3D printed together to form the chamber. Some people have expressed concerns with the durability of the chamber, seeing as though it's nylon as opposed to the stock chamber's metal. Now, I have actually found there to be advantages in having a nylon chamber over a metal chamber, and I have not discovered any disadvantages whatsoever. The advantages being less wear and tear. The nylon is a slightly softer but still very hard material. However, the metal is, you've got a metal bolt smacking into a metal chamber. The metal impacting metal is going to be a lot more wear than, say, metal impacting nylon. So the nylon chamber acts as a better cushion, so there's less wear on your bolt. It also noticeably quiets your gun overall, because the metal bolt slamming into the nylon chamber is quieter than the metal bolt slamming into the metal chamber. And this is a nice thick chunk of nylon, and Shapeways material has proven to be more than durable enough for the applications of this gun. I have actually taken a hammer to these chambers before and I could not break them, even if I hit them very hard. So in normal operation of your gun, the chamber is definitely going to hold up. Now, about getting this part is it is 3D printed from Shapeways. How that works is I created this model, I uploaded it to Shapeways. Shapeways provides a service where you can order the model from Shapeways, they will 3D print it out and ship it to you. Now this is a good thing because it's made to order, so even though it takes probably about, I think, a week for them, or like 6 business days, I don't know, it kind of changes a bit, but even though it takes them a couple days to make the model, it still gets to you faster than it would be if you were to order it from overseas, and you don't have to worry about it ever being out of stock since they're always made to order, so you don't have to wait like months or whatever for your favorite retailer to restock it. So I think it's a win-win. Shapeways also ships worldwide, so you can get this part if you live in the States, the UK, Asia. I don't know if Shapeways can ship to Russia, but they ship all over the world. So it's available to you, and you'll probably still get it faster than if you were to order it from an I would recommend reading through the video description just to make sure there aren't any updates or things like that. I'll also be editing into the video description for if people test this chamber with a certain barrel or bucking combination that they really like and get good results with. So if you want to let me know anything about my chamber, you can feel free to leave me a comment, or you can email me at tophatairsmithing@gmail.com. If you want to get in touch with me, those are some good ways to do it.